Hello everyone, this is Rebecca Townsend and I will be responding for this discussion to the questions provided. So question number 1 is based on content from this week's reading. How is it that you became the cultural being you are today? Within chapter 3 of this week's reading, culture is very broad, and within the video it explains that there's not one specific culture and there's not a specific number that you can put to how many cultures exist within the world. However, every unique individual might have their own culture. So culture is this broad category that is defined by multiple subcategories that identify yourself. So, for example, your own specific culture includes your ethnicity, your social class, your gender, your health, your age, your geographic region, your sexuality, your religion, your social status, the language you speak, your ability and or disability, as well as your race. And then there are lots of social agents that transmit culture, such as your family, what school you go to, where you go for worship, what community you live in, what neighborhood you live in, what peer group you associate with, what electronic media you use, what sports you might play, what arts you might be interested or involved in, print media, your workplace, and even technology. So there are a lot of things about one individual that go into this big, broad concept of what your culture is. So in order to know what your culture is, or how you become the cultural being that you are today, all of those things that I listed are all things that identify your culture. So if I am growing to realize how I became the cultural being I am today, I'm going to take into account my social class, the family that I live in, my peer groups, all the things that I've been involved in socially, as well as what things were given to me just by the Lord, or basically by the Lord, right? Your ethnicity, your gender, your health, all of that. So the next question asks, what do you know about your own culture that I can use to better understand another culture, or that will enable me to talk intelligently about cultural differences with someone who's different than me? So the video that we watched for this week states that there's, again, no one specific culture, and there are many subcultures. There is not a labeled number of cultures, and many of our cultures share similarities. Even my sister and my brother have a bit of a different culture than I do, as they identify differently, or have different race, or have different sexuality. Understanding these differences is really important. Not all cultures share the same priorities. So my cultural norms around time, communication, and relationships aren't universal. I may value punctuality or direct communication, but in other cultures, being flexible with time or using indirect communication can be a sign of respect. So by reflecting on those tendencies, I can approach cultural differences with curiosity instead of judgment, knowing that there is so much diversity and so much uniqueness within cultures. I'm able to recognize that I may not understand fully what their different culture prioritizes, but realizing that my world and my view of the world is not the same as others changes the whole ballgame. So those are my responses for this week's questions. If you have any questions, go ahead and comment below. I'm so excited about this discussion this week, as culture is something that has been so difficult for me to kind of grasp and understand. There's so much that goes into it, and I'm excited to learn more. So thank you for listening, and I look forward to all of your responses.